Hello, boys and girls. I hope you are having a great Thursday so far, and I hope that all of you had a chance to finish up your charts and get to watch the video from my lesson yesterday, because yesterday we finished our story, Seeds and Sunflowers, and I assigned you a who, what, when, where, and why chart for you to fill out, because that is something very helpful that's going to be helpful to you when you write your full summary. So if you have not had a chance to do that, you need to do that before you watch this video and before you work on your summary, because it's going to be really helpful when you try to write. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about summaries, and we're going to talk about what's the important things that need to go into a summary, what are the important details that you should add into a summary, and how to write a summary. So what we're going to talk about is what is a summary. So a summary retells the main events in a story in a shorter version. Okay, so when we are writing a summary, we want to retell that story, but in a shorter version. So we don't want to write pages and pages of a summary, because that would just be retelling the entire story. What we want to do is we want to retell that story in a short version and only including the most important details from that story. So when we're just retelling a story, we don't want to add every single detail that happened in the story. We just want to put the biggest, most important ones. Okay? So like we talked about yesterday, a summary often answers the 5 W's. Okay, and the 5 W's are who, what, when, where, and why. And sometimes the why can kind of be like a how. Okay, so when we are talking about our 5 W's, the who is who was the main character in the story. So when you are writing your summary, I want to know who was the main character in the story. Who were the people in the story? Okay, our what, when we're talking about our what, we want to talk about what did the character want in the story, or what was the problem in the story. Okay, so we want to make sure we include what the character wanted or what the problem was in the story. Okay, the when we do the when, we want to make sure we say when the story took place. So when did the story take place? Sometimes it can be a time period. Sometimes it can be seasons. So in this case, in our story, Seeds and Sunflowers, it told us when the story took place because it talked about the seasons that were going on during the story. Okay? The where, when we talk about the where in the story, we talk about where the story took place. So in our Seeds and Sunflowers story, it obviously was taking place in the character's house and in his garden and places like that. So we want to talk about where the story was actually happening. And then the why, when we talk about our why/how, we want to talk about why did certain things happen in the story. So why did some of the things that occurred in the story, why did they happen? And then how the problem in the story was solved. So when we tell our what, we always tell what the problem was. So we obviously, at the end of our summary, we have to tell how that problem was solved. How did they fix their problem? Okay? So when I read your summary, all of those questions should be answered. That's how we write a good summary. So if you have a perfect, awesome summary, it should tell me who the main character was, what they wanted or what the problem was in the story, when the story took place, where the story took place, and why certain things happened in the story or how their problem was solved. Okay? So in order for your summary to be a good summary, it needs to have all of those questions answered. So what you need to do when you write your summary today, you need to look back at your who, what, when, where, why chart that you completed yesterday. And so you need to read your summary and then look at your chart. And if your summary does not have all of the facts and details that you added in your 5 W's chart, then your summary is not finished and you need to add to it a little bit, okay? And so now we're going to talk about some really important things that you need to make sure you have for your summary to be an A+ summary. So if we want a 100 on this summary, these are the things that you need to make sure that you have in your summary for it to be an awesome one. So the very first thing in our summary is that your summary needs to be at least 5 to 6 sentences, and that's it, okay? We don't want to write a summary that's like 4 pages long, because if it's that long, we've probably just retold the whole story. And a summary, if we remember, just tells the main events, the most important events, and answers the 5 W's, okay? So when you're writing your summary and when you turn in your summary, I'm going to be looking and making sure that your summary is 5 to 6 sentences. And when we are writing our sentences, we want to make sure that we have capitals. Okay, so every word at the beginning of a sentence should be capitalized, and we want to have punctuation. Okay, and when we have punctuation, that could be a period or an exclamation point or maybe a question mark, but usually it's just a period, okay? If you don't have a period, then you have 5 sentences that just keep going and going and going. So we want to make sure that we have those capital letters and our punctuation marks, okay? The next thing, basically what we just talked about, is keeping it short, okay? We do not want pages and pages. We do not want pages and pages. We want to keep that summary short, okay? It should just be a short little story that tells me the most important things that happened, so I can just kind of learn about it a little bit, but I don't have every single detail, okay? Just the most important main ones, okay? The next thing that you need to make sure that your summary is an awesome one, which we just talked about, is writing about the main events. So you only write about the main events. Okay, the most important things. And usually those main events are your 5 W's. Okay, if you answer those 5 W's, that kind of tells me the main events also. Okay, the next thing that you need to make sure that your summary is a good one is to use your vocab words from the text. Okay, so use your vocab words from the text. Okay, so we're going to talk about just a couple of those super important vocabulary words that we talked about yesterday. One of those important vocabulary words that we talked about, and it was the first one that we talked about that would be really good to add in your summary, was consumer. Okay, if you can't remember what this word means, you can rewatch our video from yesterday and from Tuesday, because we talk about it a lot. But a consumer, if we remember, is a person who buys goods and services. Okay, so in our story, the goods that people were buying would have been the sunflowers, okay? And the seeds that Mike bought were also goods, okay? So in your summary, something that you could add would be, Mike wanted to sell sunflowers to his consumers, okay? His consumers would be the people who wanted to buy his goods, which were sunflowers, okay? So we always want to include those really nice, big 3rd grade vocabulary words in our summaries, okay? Another vocabulary word that you could also include would be organic, okay? Organic. We talked about this one yesterday too, okay? Okay, so remember yesterday when we talked about organic, when we think about organic, we think about natural things. Okay, natural goods that were not used with chemicals, that did not have chemicals put on them or in them. So natural things that do not have chemicals. We want to make sure that they don't have chemicals. Okay, that's what an organic good is. So if you were writing your summary, you could say, Mike went and bought some organic sunflower seeds so he could grow organic sunflowers. Okay, that would be a really good big third grade vocabulary word that you can include in your summary. Okay, one more that we used from yesterday was accrue. Accrue. Okay, if you don't remember this word, I want you to go back to the videos where I read the story and we talk about it. But accrue is when you earn money over time. Okay, so to earn money over time. So it's when you keep on earning money and saving up money and you accrue that money. So when you earn and save money over time. Okay, so that could be a good vocabulary word to add also. You could say, Mike wanted to accrue enough money to buy the super spy kit. Okay, so those awesome vocabulary words from our story just make your summary better. It makes it sound better, and it shows me that you understood those vocabulary words and you used them in a really good way in your own writing. If you use them in your own writing, that proves to me that you understood what they meant and you understand how to use them, which is why we learn vocabulary words. We want to learn those vocabulary words so we can use them in the way that we talk, and we can use them in summaries and in our own writing. Okay? And the last thing that makes your summary a really, really good one is no opinions. Okay? No opinions. An opinion, your opinion, is when you write and you say, I think this would have happened. Now, yesterday I did ask you for your opinions. I asked you what your opinion was, and wanted you to tell me what you think would have happened at the end of the story. Now, yesterday I asked you for that, but in our summaries, we do not want to put our opinions. We only want to add main events, main details, main facts, and what actually happened in the story. We don't really want to add our opinion in there, just because we're telling a story or telling a summary from a different story. We're not writing our own story. Okay, so in order for your summary to be an awesome one, to have an A+ summary, we want to make sure, let's go over it one more time, that we have 5 to 6 sentences with capitals and punctuation, so periods, exclamation points, or question marks. We want to keep it short, okay? Just keep it to those 5 to 6 sentences. We don't want pages and pages, because then it would be too long and it would be like you're telling the whole story over again. We just want to keep it short with the main details, and that brings me to my next point. We want to write about the main event, so our 5 W's. We want to make sure we answer these 5 questions when we are writing. And we want to use vocabulary words. So we want to make sure that we use those important new vocabulary words in our summaries so we can show that we learned those words from the story and we know how to use them in our own writing. And last, no opinions, okay? We don't want to add any opinions in our writing. So you don't want to say, I think this will happen next. I don't like that this happened in this story. I didn't like the main character. Okay, we don't want to add that into our summary. We just want to keep it to details and facts and the main things that we learned from our story. Okay, so really quick, I want to show you a way that you can remember your 5 W's. So while you are writing, a way to remember those 5 W's is you want to think about those 5 W's as a hand, okay? And I am terrible at drawing hands, so just kind of bear with me a little bit, okay? If I can get my camera fixed. All right. So we want to stick to our 5 W's. So if you think about your hand, and I'm sorry for this drawing, I'm really bad at drawing hands. Okay, so not a great hand, but it'll work. So we think about our 5 W's. We have our who, what, when, where, and why / how. All right. So every time you're writing your summary, you need to hold up your hand with your 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Okay? And while you're writing, you need to check off those 5 W's. So the who, we want to put the main character. Our main character was, if anybody can remember, I believe his name was Mike. Okay, so don't, in your summary, don't say he wanted to buy sunflowers and he wanted to buy a super spy kit and that doesn't tell me who you're talking about. So you want to make sure you put his name in there. Mike wanted to buy a super spy kit. Mike wanted to sell sunflowers to earn money to buy it. Okay, so use their name. What, so our what was, what did the character want and what was the problem? Okay, so we talked about it yesterday. What did the character want? What was his problem? He wanted, okay, a super spy kit. It's hard to write like this. Okay, his problem was he didn't have enough money to buy it. Okay, now those are just 2 examples of how you would fill out your hand. So if you want to trace your own hand on a piece of paper, you can trace your own hand. I'm doing mine kind of big because I'm working with a marker. But you can trace your own hand before you start your summary. And on each finger, you're going to write the who, what, when, where, and why / how. Okay? And before you even start your summary, I want you to use your hand and your chart from yesterday and answer your 5 W's, and then use those 5 W's in your writing, okay? So we want to use those 5 W's, and then we also want to make sure we add the most important things for an A+ summary, okay? So make sure you use this video to help you write your summary. Make sure you use your 5 W chart from yesterday to help you write your summary. And make sure that you add the most important things for an A+ summary. Okay? So what I would like for you to do now is I want you to write a summary for the story Seeds and Sunflowers. Remember, I want 5 to 6 sentences in your summary. So you can type it on your computer and email it to me, okay? And I will write my email down. Okay, Okay, some of you have already emailed me some stuff, so you probably already have my email, but it's all on one line, okay? taylor.duncan@mcdowell.k12.nc.us. Okay, so you can type it on a computer and email it to me, or you can just write it on a piece of paper, which is totally fine, and post a picture of it into Google Classroom. Okay, or if you wanted to, it might be a little bit harder, but you can just write your summary in the comments on Google Classroom on this video and post it that way. But I'm going to be reading all of your summaries. I'm so excited to see how well you do, because I know you guys are awesome at writing summaries and they're going to be really good. But make sure that you either type it and email it, put it in the comments, or you post it in Google Classroom. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow.